everyone. Welcome to the session of Ashram Talks. Thank you so much for joining us. And today we're going to discuss quite an interesting topic, and it's independence. We can ask ourselves, maybe we have done it, like, what's independence really, right? Like, is it really possible to become completely independent, or do we always have to rely on someone or on something? So we're going to dive deep into this topic from the perspective of the Bhagavad Gita, of course, with the guidance of Krsnacandra, who's joining us today from Huntington. Welcome, Krsnacandra. Thank you for being here.
Hare Krishna. Good to see you again, Subhadra. Thank you for
It's
having
good to
me on.
see you after a while. And
Yes.
I think this topic is really engaging because it's relatable. Like, I think probably we've all experienced this independence dilemma, right? Like this self-reliance versus needing help. But today
Mhm.
we're gonna dive into it in a more deep or a deeper perspective, aren't we?
Yes. I'm going to touch on a lot of different aspects of what's said in verse 318, and hopefully we'll start a really productive, illuminating discussion about it.
Okay, looking forward to it. We can start then.
Excellent. So I'm going to start with the Mangala Charn. I'm going to say a short prayer, and then we will recite the verse. So I'm going to get started. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sahadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kantarata Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Brishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindaye Tulasi Deviai Priyavai Keshavasasha Krishna Bhakti Pratidevi Satyavatyai Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. As we are about to read the verse, I will start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And we are going to read chapter 3, verse 18. Naivatasya kritenarto na kriteneha kaschana na chasya sarvabhuteshu kaschidartha vyapashrayaha. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. Tonight, I'm feeling a bit tired, so I'm going to rely more on the verse itself than my own energy. And that might actually be appropriate for this shloka. Bhagavad Gita 3:18 describes the quiet freedom of one who no longer acts out of lack or fear or self concern, but out of alignment with Dharma, with our nature, with our sense of duty, with our purpose. This verse is not describing a person who lacks feeling. It describes a person who is no longer ruled by personal necessity. You may recall in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna felt overwhelmed. He was always a powerful warrior, self assured in his superior abilities, without being a braggart. And yet, Arjuna felt overwhelmed due to his own sense of compassion for his own adversaries on the Kurukshetra battlefield that were actually his own friends and relatives. It was that sense of compassion toward his fellow souls which overwhelmed him to the point where he loosened his grip on his Gandiva bow. He had momentarily become weak, in a sense. Please excuse me. What's striking is that Arjuna's weakness does not come from fear for himself, but from attachment to the emotional consequences of action. He also spoke against fighting, saying that he would rather be killed by his adversaries unarmed or live a life begging for alms. The lives of most human beings is to assume our roles based on our basic needs. Our needs for shelter and companionship, for example, they're valid, but when they are not addressed with the perspective of our position in the grand scheme of things, those needs can become out of control. The pivotal moments of Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita was in chapter 2, verse 7, when he asked to be Krishna's disciple. Arjuna's illusion clearly ended as of chapter 18, verse 73, which is essentially the end of the Bhagavad Gita, the last few verses, when Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy, and I am now firm and free from doubt, and I'm prepared to act according to your instructions." Throughout the course of the Gita, Arjuna learned about who he was and about Krishna. He became the very self-realized man that chapter 3, verse 18 refers to. In chapter 11, verse 33, Krishna explains to Arjuna, "Therefore, get up and prepare to fight. After conquering your enemies, you will enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Savyasachin, can be but an instrument in the fight." By the way, being an instrument doesn't mean doing nothing. It means not claiming ownership. And Krishna further explains in chapter 2, verse 28, "For one who has taken his birth, death is certain. And for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament." Arjuna feared that his action would cause destruction. Krishna reveals that destruction is already destined, and Arjuna's role is not to decide the outcome, but to decide whether he will align with Dharma. To be clear, Arjuna did not simply become a killing machine devoid of compassion. His own relatives, the Kauravas, led by the leader of the Kauravas, Duryodhana, who is Arjuna's own cousin, declared that, "I shall not part with even a needlepoint of land. Duryodhana made a conscious effort to disenfranchise his own cousins, the Pandavas, to drive them to poverty and annihilation. He and his brethren also tried to kill the Pandavas and to completely disrobe and assault Arjuna's wife, Draupadi. Despite such a laundry list of offenses, Arjuna would have rather been killed in cold blood, unarmed, or begged for alms than to meet his ill wishing relatives in battle. Before the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, Arjuna had already demonstrated the inner orientation that Krishna later describes in his verse in 318. When offered a choice between Krishna himself, unarmed and vowing not to fight, and Krishna's vast army, Arjuna chose Krishna alone, not the army, not the well trained and well armed army. This was not a sentimental decision, nor a dramatic one. It was a conscious expression of dependence on the supreme rather than on external strength. In that moment, Arjuna showed freedom from calculation of gain and loss, victory and defeat. That inner freedom, the absence of personal necessity, is exactly what Krishna is describing in chapter 3, verse 18. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada explains in his purport to chapter 3, verse 18, that such a person who has nothing to gain and nothing to lose does not abandon action, but acts without personal demand. Action continues, but the center has shifted. Life is no longer driven by self-interest or anxiety about the outcome. Instead, one acts because it is proper, because it is service, because it is aligned with the will of the Supreme. Arjuna's choice on the battlefield illustrates this principle in lived form. He did not act to secure an advantage for himself, but to remain connected to Krishna. This is the state Krishna is pointing toward. Not inactivity, but action purified of personal necessity. For me, this verse has become clearer in ordinary work situations. I work for the U.S. Postal Service, and much of the work is routine and time bound. And I've noticed that when I simply finish on performing my duties without feeling stress or inner commentary, the work still gets done, but there's far less disturbance internally. Nothing externally changes, but the sense of personal pressure drops. That seems very close to what Krishna is describing here. Action continues, but it is no longer driven by personal demand or agitation. The work doesn't become spiritual because it's pleasant. It becomes lighter because the inner demand for control has loosened. There's actually a well known cautionary tale that helps illustrate the opposite of what Krishna is describing in this verse. Many of you might have watched movies, you might have seen Star Wars Episode 3. There was a character, Anakin Skywalker, who became just completely consumed by the fear of losing his wife, and that fear overrode his sense of duty, and step by step he abandoned what he knew to be right in order to secure a particular outcome. The tragedy is not love itself, but dependence, His entire moral compass collapsed around the need for one result. Bhagavad Gita 3:18 describes total opposite state when action is no longer driven by personal necessity. Fear no longer dictates behavior, and duty can be performed without inner collapse. What's tragic is that the character believes he's acting out of love, but fear has already replaced discernment. The Bhagavad Gita offers a different solution. Not the suppression of love, but freedom from fear based attachment. All of us, in our own way, are standing on a battlefield where we must choose between perceived external security and true inner alignment. Arjuna chose presence over power. Bhagavad Gita 3:18 invites us to move in that same direction, not by abandoning action, but by releasing our personal demand on it. By choosing Krishna himself as a non combatant of the battle, instead of Krishna's mighty army, Arjuna was not choosing weakness, he was choosing alignment. He gave up control over the outcomes in order to remain present with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That shift from power to presence is exactly what Bhagavad Gita 3:18 is describing. And this is where the Bhagavad Gita becomes personal for us. The goal is not to become emotionally numb, nor to suppress love or responsibility. The goal is to cultivate our own relationship with Krishna so that our actions are no longer driven by fear or lack or personal necessity. When relationships come first, when that relationship with Krishna becomes first, the duty becomes lighter. Action becomes clearer. And like Arjuna, we are able to act, not because we control the outcome, but because we trust the one we are acting with. I thank you. The past few days.
Thank you so much, Krishna Chandra, for this talk. Um, I wanted to say that so independence is not about not needing anyone,
Mhm.
but it is about depending on the supreme source of everything. So
Mhm.
the things that are around us don't that like they lose their influence on us. Like internally, we depend on the supreme, so everything around us it doesn't affect us, like doesn't affect our consciousness. Is that right?
Um, yes, I mean, we're surrounded by conditioned souls. I think I did this a long time ago. I spoke about the when Arjuna got overwhelmed with compassion, and many times what happens is either our fellow souls, we can either become betrayed, or people have separate goals in life, or it's just through death, because we all have our own path, when we all have a time to leave our identity and to assume another identity. So it's when we lose the perspective of where we are, who we are going to, that we're eternal spirit souls. Like, I'll tell you, William Shakespeare, he said, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. They have their entrances, their exits, and one person in their life plays many parts. So, we're all playing parts. We're all kind of coming in and out of this world. So it's at some point we have to really just understand that there is only one eternal source. And when we, I mean, and of course that takes on many, many manifestations, but it is the same source. And when we, once we have that understanding, we don't become bewildered. We don't become bewildered by betrayal. If we, it's still going to hurt when we lose the people we love, but we understand, where they're going. We understand where we're going, and where everybody's ultimate goal is. When we don't understand that, it becomes so much more painful, very confusing, and it's just life becomes a lot more perilous when we don't have that divine knowledge.
Also, I like that you made with giving the example of this character from the movie Star
Yes,
Wars.
yes,
Because I think it's pretty much like us when we think, okay, I can do this. Like I've got the strengths of this situation, so I'm going to act and take care of everything, because if I don't do it, then it's going to be ruined. So what he did instead was completely the opposite. Like,
right.
I don't know, he was so self-reliant that he just made, yeah, he acted in a way that everything that he feared became true at the end.
Yes,
And most of
that's
us do
right.
that.
Yeah, I mean, everything in that situation, everything he was trying to prevent actually did happen, and probably wouldn't have happened if he had gone on this like completely self-centered delusional route. So, I mean, this can happen to any one of us, just on different scales. We all hear of the self-fulfilling prophecies, and we hear about when people, I mean, there's so many different things like generational curses, and when we're all compelled to go down this path where we're just filled so much with anxiety and compulsions, and it's ultimately, we have to know, first of all, like, we have to know where those feelings come from, but again, we also have to know where we are all from. So um ultimately we have, it's just staying in our foundation, just remaining introspective to some degree. And our tradition is, there is a degree of introspection, because we have to understand that one of the manifestations of Krishna is the Paramatma. So we have that God, Krishna, is there in every one of us, and we can, if we do stop and listen, if we ask for help, it will come. It may not come like exactly at that moment. It may not be what you want to hear, but it'll be there. You will hear something, and it will get you to where you need to go ultimately.
I think that's actually, it might sound simple,
Mhm.
but this thing about, being self-conscious and always trying to reflect on how we feel, on what's inside, it's actually a helpful meditation, and it's really powerful. I've experienced it in the case of when I am afraid of something, or
Yes.
sometimes it happens to me that I don't know, start thinking about death, but my dear ones. So yeah,
Yeah.
I feel afraid. Like, okay, I don't know if I want to experience this, but I know it's going to come. So when I meditate on that you're mentioning, okay, but God is everywhere. It's inside me. It's inside of that person. So when we part from this world, we're gonna go. It's like we're being held. We're being, yeah, sustained. So it gives me a lot of comfort, and I think it's a powerful tool that we should rely on, on the spiritual practice, because everything is inside.
Yes. I mean, the answers are inside. I mean, on the one hand, yes, we do need to find guidance with others, maybe those senior to us, people who have, like in our tradition, for example, we have the Guru Parampara. But ultimately, when we make those connections, when we meet, like for example, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, but like in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya chapter 22, verse 54, it says that even one moment of association with a pure devotee will bring you all success. And once we make that connection, um, in some sense, we are trained to find those answers within ourselves. You know, like we have that initial spark. We're given instructions. We follow those instructions. You know, just as anyone who goes to school, anyone who goes to university, we get those, but ultimately we get those instructions so that we can be self-reliant. We can go out there like I'll use the example of Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. You know, this whole tradition was localized in, for the most part, and he went by himself, no help, just within himself. And he knew he wasn't he was humble. He gave all his credit to his teachers, but he went and he utilized that, and he was, in one sense, a one-man army. And I think that's what we're all being trained to do. We're all being trained to be a one-person army. That, here is the spark of divinity, here is the spark of guru, and now, um, you will get those instructions, and you will be able to operate, and ultimately your spiritual father will be very proud of you, because you will have, it's a matter of just not being afraid, and just having some self-assurance. You have to have some level of self-confidence and understand that you've been given what you need. You're perfectly capable. You can serve God, you can serve your fellow souls, and then you'll be able to, because Arjuna he wasn't like someone who was trying to be king. He had to also serve all of his subjects in some sense. He had to be a leader, and that being that leadership, he had to serve all the souls that he affected. So when the more we go into that, the more we learn about our true identities and everything, the more we can fulfill that goal, because Krishna ultimately has a plan for all of us, and it's within our dharma, and we all have our talents and what we need to serve him and each other.
Just self-confidence, because if we don't, it would be like the completely opposite of what we were discussing, like when you're the overly confident. But if you don't have any self-confidence, then maybe you're not going to do anything. And as you mentioned previously, like
Right.
it doesn't mean being, you have to be an instrument, and it doesn't mean that you're doing nothing. It means that you're not claiming ownership, but you still have to trust yourself. You have to trust that you're given the capacity to do it.
Hmm.
And well, we're here, right, discussing these topics, and that's all thanks to those guides who have brought this knowledge to us. And yeah, we should do something about it. Like, we have this knowledge, okay, we should try to
Yeah.
engage and talk about it and share it with others.
I completely agree with everything you said. It's very succinct, very well put. I just want to add also that I feel like I went through this phase in my life, after I met my guru, after I started on this path, that I felt to myself like, many times when I go with my guru, I was the youngest person there. I had the least experience. I felt like the child of the whole party. So, and as I was doing this, I said, oh, who am I? I can't lead a kirtan. I can't do a class. I just felt for the longest time, you see this in some literature. You see this person saying, "Oh, I am so insignificant." You hear this, you hear a phrase sometimes, I'm lower than a worm in stool. And of course, it's not an easy thing to hear. And, from a certain point of view, it might be true because those greatest souls are just so amazing and they're so enlightened, so compassionate, so humble themselves. But on the other hand, at some point, we do need um, to believe in ourselves, believe because when we believe in I mean, ultimately, we also have to believe in, when our teachers gave us a chance to get to this level of enlightenment. They gave us a chance to serve. It's because they saw something in us. They saw that we have something that we can rise up to the occasion and be a part of the community. So we have to it's very important that we believe in ourselves and that we do our very best always.
Thank you so much for telling us about your experience. I always love it when they talk about their experience when they were with the spiritual masters, or it's something that's very engaging, and I think it helps everyone connect from the heart.
Yeah.
Like we can relate.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you. I just want to say one more thing about that. Like, I mean, it wasn't that I was going on this trip with my guru and I felt like so insignificant, but I did really feel like the child in a sense. I felt he really did dote on me in a very kind and loving way. And I just loved it. Was actually the best time in my whole life, just being like the real son to my spiritual father. And I had never felt anything just so pure and so full of love in my life. And I just I guess there was a part of me that never wanted to grow up. I always wanted to be that child, but at some point we have to take responsibility. That's what ultimately they're trying to do to get us to. I don't want to say they're trying to get us to do exactly what they're doing, but you know they want us to see us try. I mean, with a healthy dose of humility, but also believing in being self assured, but with humility.
That taking responsibility is also part of that service and that love we want to offer is not just like, okay, I love this, or we have you have to show it, right? So when it comes to time to take responsibility, then you're gonna show your love, or you're gonna try to show your love as much as you can.
Yes, that's and the thing is, it's like I was shown love. I was shown so much love, both from my Guru Maharaj and from like his closest associates. And now that I think about it, that's like I don't want to say it's the greatest like burden, but it's like the most important thing that we need to share with others. It's not, oh, I know all these scripts. I know what this verse means and I'm going to tell you what it means, but we have to share that love that we were given. And um I mean, I feel like what I'm saying just sounds so overly simplistic, but at the same time, I never felt that caliber of love from anyone in my life. Not you know I can't, not from my parents, but from my Guru Maharaj. And I just, words can never put that to justice. There's nothing I can say to properly express what that was.
Like one has to experience it. It's like someone can tell you what mangoes taste like, but if you don't try them, you don't actually know what they are
Ex-
like.
Exactly. And I think that's part of what, Modulila 2254 is saying. Like, just that moment. The moment is actually 1/11th of a second. But just that's how sublime that meeting is. And you're absolutely right. It's like, you have to taste the mango. You can't, I can describe it till the end of time, but it's never going to be anywhere near the actual experience. So um, it's I would just pray a lot, just to meet someone of that caliber. I mean, you hear there's an old saying, they say, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I mean, and I think part of being ready is just preparing oneself to be receptive, to be open minded, just to be ready to listen, to have the time. I'm very fortunate that when I did meet my Guru Maharaj, I was blessed with the time and the means to spend time with him. When I look back, I wish I had spent more time with him, but I spent maybe 2 or 3 months out of the year for 3 years, and that was just absolutely amazing. Even compared to other spiritual God siblings of mine, I was extremely fortunate. So, but it's also about that preparation of your heart, opening your heart, and being soft hearted, and you know we all have that, all of us. We all have like a inside us, we all have this perfect, serving identity for Radha and Krishna, and for our eternal spiritual master. It's there. It's just a matter of unlocking that, and in time we can all do that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And yes, I felt truly inspired after hearing your words. Also,
Whoa.
here, Sienna says she'd like to hear more about your journey with your spiritual master in another episode. So, yeah, so maybe we could keep on discussing or sharing about that if you'd like to in another episode.
I would love to. I have a few stories that I'd love to share. I kind of wish I'd done it now, but I guess I can do it another time. It's something for
Sure.
everyone to look forward to, especially myself.
Well, thank you so much, Sienna. Thank you, Colleen, for joining. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Krsnacandra, for your time and your willingness to share despite you're feeling a bit tired. So thank you so much. We really
It's
appreciate your effort.
it's my pleasure. Thank you again. Thanks for your patience. Hare Krishna. Jai
Hare
Shri Ram.
Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for joining. And if you're watching this not live, well, thank you for watching and supporting Ashram Talks. Remember, you can catch up live sessions on Mondays at 7:30 p.m. and Thursdays at 8 a.m. EST. Also, you can let's see. This is something new. We're streaming on Spotify, so you can find it as Journey Through the Bhagavad Gita. Don't miss it. So some of our episodes are already there, so you can just browse on Spotify and listen to the episodes that had been already uploaded. And then we'll continue our journey through the Bhagavad Gita on Thursday at 8 a.m. So we hope everyone enjoys it and, of course, joins us to continue this spiritual journey. Thank you so much for being here, and see you next time. Goodbye.